Welcome to Sunday Connections. Is this anybody's first Sunday Connections? Perfect, Matthew. So what Sunday Connections is, it provides us opportunities to explore our spirituality in an open forum, a non-denominational forum, where we welcome thoughts and ideas from outside and other spiritual influences. Our speaker this evening, Gentry, is one of us. He's a master resident. He is one of the most recent people to be invited to the Leadership Development Training Program, LDT. He runs the moving office, and he was my first intern manager, where he demonstrated for me every day what I could have if I would just put in the work. So would you please join me in welcoming Gentry?
Hi everyone. Is this thing working pretty good? So those of you that don't know me, I'm not very much of a talker, and I really don't like to talk about myself that much, so I'm just going to kind of do the best that I can, and we'll just go from there. So my name is Gentry. I was born in West Valley, Utah. I grew up in a kind of a different home setting than most people, I would think. My mom was always at work, so I was really left at home with my sister a lot and her boyfriends, and that's just kind of where like my life of negative things really started to happen. My sister was already in a negative lifestyle, so I just kind of grew up thinking like that was the way to live life. I'll just fast forward a little bit. I lost my dad when I was 4 years old. I don't really have any memories much of him. Just ice fishing one time when I was like 3, and then after that I just remember he didn't come pick me up one weekend, and he was gone and never going to return. So that's where I went from there. From about 4 on to about 13, I didn't have a dad. I was just my sister and her boyfriends were the ones that kind of raised me. My mom was here and there, and my mom did the best she could. She was always working to pay the bills, and she had 2 hellion children that were at home, which didn't help any matters, and it didn't help me get any better. So when I was 12 years old, my mom got reintroduced to one of her old friends, and he eventually became my stepfather. He was in my life for about 3 years until he ended up passing away as well. At that time, when he was in my life, I was in sports, I was wrestling, I was doing football, and things like that. After he passed away, that's when I really, things took a turn for the worse. My sister moved back into my house, and I was hanging out with her and boyfriends again, sneaking out of my house to go break into cars at night and stuff like that, just doing stuff that a child really shouldn't be doing. I got introduced to drugs a little bit later after that because what I was learning from my sister's boyfriend, I took to my own friends and decided, hey, this is what I've been doing, and if you guys want to do this too, and it just started a downhill spiral, and I'm trying to tie this whole thing into being spiritual. I've never really been a spiritual person my entire life. I'm not really sure what I believe in. I know what I do believe in. I don't feel comfortable calling it a God or a higher power. All my life I've just kind of believed whatever happens was meant to happen, and you just kind of got to deal with it. I don't know what you call that, but that's just kind of my spirituality with things. And sometimes I just really believe that wherever you're at right now is where you're meant to be. Sometimes that means that if you land in jail or prison, that's where you're supposed to be in that moment in time, and then wherever life takes you after that. So that's kind of my spirituality with things. But as I got older and I got more into drugs and into negative behaviors and criminality, I always knew that the person that I was wasn't the person I actually wanted to be. It was just someone that I felt I had to be, or I guess because I wanted a fit-in problem my entire life, and the group of people I had around me were gang members, bad influences. They were drug dealers, and those were my idols. That was who I grew up to look up to. And that's the only way of life I thought was the way to live, honestly. So that's what I wanted to be. I know that sounds bad, I know that sounds sad, but that's ultimately what I planned to be my entire life. In and out of jail, I knew, I'll talk about this last one. So the last time I went to jail before Red Barn, I went in there and I was sick, right, for about 4 days. And I finally came out of my jail cell, and the first thing I seen was an older gentleman on the phone. He had to have been in his 60s. And he was on the phone, and he was yelling at his mom. If you don't put money in my books, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm not going to be able to make it. And instantly in that moment, my head was like, I do not want to be that guy. So in that moment, I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I had to do something so I wouldn't end up back in jail again, because I was going to do anything I could to not be that guy. Because I was literally walking out of my cell to go call my mom to help get money on my books. You know, I was much younger, but just seeing that, like, that was, in my head, I was like, if I continue down this path, that's exactly what I'm going to be, is that guy right there. So I went back to my cell, and unfortunately I had a roommate there. His name was Colby Barnett. He was a guy that came to Red Barn and ended up leaving, I think, over 12 hours. He left the tilt skillet on, but one of the things that stuck to me that he said was the worst decision he's made in his adult life was leaving Red Barn. Because he said the 6 or 7 months he was here, he could see changes, but because of the 12 hours that he got and he didn't agree with, he threw it all away. He said if he can go back in time, he would have just took the 12 hours and did it. So from that time on, he was like my welcomer before being welcomed into Red Barn, if that makes sense. Because every night I was just, hey, what are hours? What do you mean community service? What do you mean a contract? So when I already got to Red Barn and I got my welcomer, Kevin Larson, I was already up to date on what contract was, what community service hours were, you know, some of the lingo, you know, about the moving. And what really stuck to me is he said that if you just stay there for the entire time, it's like very unlikely you'll leave the man that you came there as. You know, and if you remember a little bit earlier, I said when I walked out of my cell earlier that day, I seen the man that I was going to become if I didn't change my ways. So this was what Rich likes to call his defining moments. That was one of my defining moments right there. Was this is my ticket. This is my ticket to the way out of misery that I want, right? Because I don't want to be that man. So I took that defining moment. I had an interview with my LDA later, like 2 days later, and thankfully she texted this guy Kevin Rill, which was an old program manager here. And I don't know what was said in between their texts, but Kevin Rill literally showed up 30 minutes later to interview me. I just remember I got out of the interview and, you know, I'm thinking like any other program, I'm going to be sitting here for 8 months, 10 months, you know, I'm going to be forgotten. Go lay down, 30 minutes later they tell me I have another visit. I'm like, what the heck? So I go back up there and there's this old guy, has rings on his finger, he's missing one finger, nice gray hair, and he just tells me to sit down, and then he just starts grilling me. And he, like just being very colorful with some stuff. And he asked me if I want to change, and I told him, yeah, I want to change, I want to be a better man, and he told me, well, what would I be willing to do? And at that point in my life, I was on the verge to do anything. I was literally willing to try anything to change. Because everything I had done up until that point wasn't working, so obviously my own way wasn't enough, and it wasn't going to get me to where I wanted to be. One thing I remember him saying at the very end of the interview was he saying, you know, he's like, I was you at one point, and you are me. Now, I just want you to know that if you come to Red Barn, there's going to be a ton of other brothers that are just like you. They're all manipulators, they're all thieves, they're all liars, but they all have the same end goal, and that is to become a better man and to change the way they live. And then he said, we'll be in touch. I went back to my cell that night and talking to Colby Barnett, and I was, what now? What are they going to do now? And he said, just be patient, man. Most likely, if they came to interview you and you don't have anything crazy, they're going to accept you. Well, 2 weeks later, I got an acceptance letter saying that I would be released to Red Barn as long as my judges were with it. Well, thankfully, I had court the next week after that. And I went to court and I looked on the screen and I seen Red Barn Academy. This is another one of my defining moments, you know, because I thought they accepted me. Cool, I'll get there when I get there. But I seen Red Barn Academy and I seen Kevin Rill's face, and you know he spoke on my behalf. And you know he spoke up and told the judge, hey, he's been accepted into this program, and if you guys will release him, we'll go pick him up. In that moment right there, I knew that I wanted to be part of Red Barn, because that was so awesome. You know, like my own people have never shown up to my court cases. You know, my dear loved ones, But Red Barn, they barely know me off one interview. And they just had my back from the get. Unfortunately, on that day, I didn't get released to Red Barn. The judge told me, I'm not releasing you to a program right now. And I went back. Well, 3 weeks later, I came, and guess who's on the screen again? Red Barn Academy, Kevin Rill. He said the same thing again. This time they released me. Cool. All right. So then I get released. I come to Red Barn. And on the way to Red Barn, I actually got picked up with another kid. And, we're driving, and Kevin Rill stops to get on the freeway because it's a red light, and this kid opens the door, takes off running. And Kevin Rill looks at me and goes, I'll pull over for you if you want to leave. And I said, no, I'm good. I'm good to go. Let's go. I just wanted to get out of Salt Lake. I just wanted to get as far away from that jail as I could, and I didn't want to have to go back to that jail ever again. And I remember walking out of that jail, Luis was my intern manager. He looked at me and said, you don't ever have to come back here again if you just stay the course at Red Barn and just work the steps. That always stuck with me as well. Since I've been at Red Barn, it's always been a real reality check. It was a very, it's a whole person change, man. You get here and everything that you've known until that point, you just kind of have to let go and forget, right? You got to hold people accountable. Before that, we called it other things. And then you get here and it's uncomfortable, right? You got to hold people accountable for things that you don't want to be held accountable for. And most of the time, that's the real reason why people don't hold you accountable, because they don't want it to be brought back on them eventually later down the road. And that was my thing. So I thought I was just going to come to this program, skate free for 2 years, and just leave and be the best man ever. Well, that doesn't work here. And I learned that kind of the hard way. You don't just get to fly under the radar and not get feedback and not pull anybody up. I got quite a bit of games from Logan Child. I think Gentry gave me a few times for playing small, not giving feedback. But Logan Child and Nicholas were the ones that were always right there on my neck, not letting me breathe. Now I know why, but before they were just telling me I see so much potential. I can see, leadership skills. I can see this man that wants to unfold it within you, but you're just not letting it happen. And at the time, I'm just like, whatever, It wasn't until about 8 months into my program where I was just, really things just started to change. I would say I've always bought in from the minute I got here, because this is what I wanted to do to change, but really where the magic happened was 8 months. Became the intern manager, and I was able to see that I could help more than just myself. I don't know if I was the best intern manager. I'm kind of mean sometimes, and that's just how I am. It just always comes off that way when I talk. I don't really check my delivery, and some of my interns may not like me. I'm not really sure, but I could tell that when these guys were going through things and they came to me, that I was actually helping them. And that was ultimately filling my cup. The man that I was seeing in the mirror, I was starting to fall in love with. And it was crazy because the guy that was looking back at me, I had no idea who he was. Because this is something completely new in my entire life. I've never been sober before this. Obviously when I was a kid and stuff, but since my addiction journey, I've never been sober before this. So this, I'm still learning who I am today. Like I said, I don't know if I'm spiritual. I don't really know if I'm religious. But what I do know is the man that's unfolding and becoming right now, I love. And I know I couldn't have done it without the structure or foundation that Red Barn has provided me. When I used to tell my story on the moves, I remember guys would always say that they put their life on pause when they come here, but your life's really not on pause. If you think about it, you're coming here to better your life, so really you're not pausing your life. You're pausing your life out with your families and things like that, but really, you're coming here to take a break from the chaos, like Jeff always used to say in his story, to better your situation. And that's what I like to think about, and then, it's just, that's just kind of, I'll just go back to here. After my senior retreat, I know I kind of jumped from 8 to 18, but after my senior retreat, before I get to that, so my whole stay, I was 2 years I'm gone. I'm not doing a third year. No way. No way in heck. I'm out of here. I've got what I've needed. I'm cured. After my senior retreat, I came across some feelings that I knew that if I wasn't at Red Barn, I would have relapsed. Because the feelings I had come up because of the senior retreat and the things that I got to release, I didn't know how to deal with. Thankfully, I was able to deal with those feelings with, you know, John and Shane, Jared, and Toppy, you know, and get to see those guys go through the same thing and know that I wasn't alone in that moment, and know that there was a solution that if I didn't feel like I was ready, that I could sign up for it. So 2 days after my senior retreat, I signed up for a third year. And, you know, I can't remember who asked me, but they asked me, did you regret it at all once you started your once you signed up for your third year? And I can honestly say no. I haven't regretted wanting to come here. I've never wanted to leave since I've gotten here. I know that might be crazy to hear, but I've never had the feeling of wanting to leave. I just knew, like I said earlier, like this is where I was meant to be, you know, and so during my third year, you know, when I realized that there was possible staff and training positions in the future, that really became one of my goals. You know, I got really hungry for that because what better than being able to be a part of the community that saved my life for however long they let me be here, you know, and make a job of it. Like that's truly that's like living the dream. I mean, the third year was already living the dream, but like that's really living the dream. You know, I get to just continue being here with guys that are in the same situation as me, just not as far down the path, and some of my closest brothers while I do it too, and just continue working in the recovery community. That's truly what fills my cup. You know, I think it's Nicholas that always says that recovery always comes first. And when I was young in the program, I didn't understand that. He told me the story that he was supposed to go to a meeting one day where someone was, and they called him and said, "Hey, why aren't you coming?" And he said, "I have my kid." He goes, "Well, you need to bring your kid to your meeting because your recovery comes first." And you know, that speaks volumes to me, because if you forget about your recovery, you're going to lose yourself again. You're going to lose your self-care. And you're going to lose all the work that you put in to become this person that you are now. You know, so part of my recovery is staying close to recovery, working in recovery, working with you guys, giving back to you guys. You know, that's how I plan to continue being the man I am and to continue bettering myself. I don't know if this is at all a spiritual journey, but I hope I was close, or it was okay, somewhat. But if there's any questions anyone has, I would love to answer them. Russell.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your time on like the moving company and stuff like that for the younger guys, so they kind of know what they can get from it, you know, the growth.
Okay. Yeah. So moving companies, I mean, really, I remember being here for 27 days, and I was with Nathan Workman, and he called Jeffrey, and he goes, let's get this guy out. What's he still doing here? And 2 days later, I was out on a move, and I was just like, dude, this is where it's at. This is what I need to do. I need to just stay on this moving company. I remember I used to hate having to come back to the barn for court. Be on the barn all day because I had court. Well, they'd send me to the thrift, and Jeff said, "What'd you think of thrift?" I was like, "Nah, not for me, man." Just, you know, the connection that I got out there on the moves was just so real. I had never had sober connection like that in my entire life. So, you know, just passing the box, asking the guy, "Hey, what's your favorite chips? You know, what's your favorite music? You know, would you rather listen to Cardi B or Nicki Minaj?" That stuff sounds crazy, but when you're in a box room at 3 in the morning like that, that's the stuff that keeps you going. I don't know if you guys have been there yet, but like that's, you know, getting to know your brothers on that. It's 3 in the morning, you guys are grinding, laughing, having the time of your life, and the customer's like, "What the heck's wrong with these guys?" And you're just like, I just love it. You know, I'm helping you move into your house, you're helping me move into my new life, and what gets better than that? You know. So for you younger guys, like this winter, it's cold, but there's things that you can do to get, you know, just get the warmth going. You know, get the connection real. Like I've worked in other enterprises, and the connection is great in the other enterprises, and I just don't think it's as strong as connection as the moving company. And I think anyone that comes to Red Barn, they should definitely be on the moving company for some time, or at least experience a few new moves, because really that's ultimately where I got to learn to connect on a healthy level. That's ultimately where I got to learn a lot about my brothers, you know, because no one wants to just pass boxes in silence. No one wants to, you know, it's you can have fun in a healthy way and still get the job done. And I remember that's what customers used to always tell me when I was a crew lead is, you guys' communication skills are fabulous. Like, I've never seen anyone that communicates as well as you guys. And we're like, well, yeah, we all live with each other. We're like, well, yeah, if I lived with him and worked with him, you know, I'd want to kill him. But for us, we're on, it's just a different level for us. And, you know, that's one thing I can thank the moving company for is it's really helped me want to connect with people on a real healthy level rather than just old, cheap connection ways. Any other questions? James?
Jim, first of all, thanks for sharing and being vulnerable on that. I know that you had at least one contract. Can you share with us like what you learned throughout that? Because, you know, we saw you out there doing it, but you can share that.
So what I learned on my contract is I learned that complacency is very dangerous. I came to a point in my program where I was complacent. I was horseplaying on moves. You know, me and another brother me and a few other brothers were contracted up, doing things that you shouldn't be doing on moves, holding dirt, and then we went to boondocks. And because we were doing this out on moves and at the barn, when we went to boondocks, it overflowed into boondocks, and we were roughhousing on a go-kart track and bumped into a family or a dad that was driving his daughter around, and he didn't like that, and he held us accountable for it. And then he went to the manager of boondocks and things like that, and came back to the barn, and you know, we just got sat on the bench. And the next day, me and Justin Case got put on contract for holding dirt, horseplaying, and just misrepresenting Red Barn all around. You know, and I literally pulled weeds for 119 hours. I remember going to Corey every day, and I'm just like thinking in my head, I hope he gives me a different project. I hope he gives me, he's like, go pull weeds behind the animal barn. Dang it. If I was pulling weeds in the garden where people could see the work I was doing, cool. But I was literally pulling weeds behind the animal barn where no one would ever see any of the work I was doing. I did a great job, but you know, what I learned on contract though, man, is like I said, complacency is very dangerous. I learned that I can be my own worst enemy, or I can be my best friend. And at the time that I was, you know, contracting up with people, I was becoming my own worst enemy, and I wasn't being nice to my future self. You know, because if you build contracts with anyone in your state at any point in time, whether you're black shirt, blue shirt, or red shirt, it's all going to come out of Red Barn. And I learned that the hard way. And I wish I would have, you know, I remember all my house managers saying, hey, I know you and Justin are great friends, but you need to spread your wings. You need to spread your horizon. No, and look what it led to. Because of that, I only connected with Justin, right? Every meal at the same table. You know, every house event with Justin. You know, and at the time, I thought they were just trying to break me up for my best friend, but what they were really trying to do was get me to, you know, spread my friend circle so that the contracting up didn't happen. And I can honestly say, if I would have connected with more people, it would have been less likely for me to contract up with just that one person, because I wouldn't have had so much time with him. So that's kind of what I learned from my contract. Any others?
What's the funniest thing that happened out of the moves?
Oh. Man, there was so many.
Do I want to hear this?
I can't pinpoint one memory, because I think every move I went into was just, I had fun. Like, I loved being a crew lead. I loved before I knew what a crew lead was, I loved being on the crew. I just loved the moving company, period. I had so much fun the whole, I can't remember how many months I was in the moving company, but it was just an amazing experience. And there was just so many memories. Let's see. I really can't pinpoint one. There's so many. In the winter, the summer, there's so many fun times on the moving company. Brandon.
Yeah, what was your hardest pull-up? Like, when did it change for you? Like, when the mentality change? Like,
When I got pulled up or pulled someone up?
pulled someone up.
I don't know. I don't know. One of my hardest pull-ups was with a younger kid that was here, and he threatened another student that he was going to do something to him in his sleep. That was pretty hard. I think it got blown out of proportion. It really wasn't what it was, but I was the intern manager, and he was one of the newest interns, and I think that was really hard. Any other? Andrew.
So in your program, whether it be
house manager, intern manager, or a crew lead, where did you get the most growth?
Intern manager, for sure. So I've always been about myself. You know, I've never really cared for other people's feelings. I mean, I do now. What's that word? Empathy. I never had empathy for people before intern manager. When I became an intern manager, the most growth I got is because I had to hear people out. I had to deal with what they were feeling and realize that they were really feeling that in that moment. Even if it didn't sound real to me or valid, that's what they were feeling, and I had to accept that. And I remember John would tell me this, you know, and yeah, that's where I got most of my growth for sure. Jeffrey.
I know you say you don't know what your spirituality looks like, your religion, all that kind of stuff, but everything I'm hearing from you is pretty spiritual. I hope you kind of see that when you talk about your cup being full, helping other people. Like, that's spiritual in itself. I want to just thank you for sharing. Will you talk about Red Barn Chicken as well? Because I know you didn't want to go there, but you work everywhere else, so let's hear about that one.
So, back to my contract. I knew from the second I got on the contract that I was going to the Bird after. Okay, there was no way they were putting me back on the moving company. So at the time, at the Bird, we used to call it the Bird, now it's Red Barn Chicken. We used to call it the Bird because it was Sticky Bird. There was this whole fake persona of like, that's where you got sent when you were bad, or that's where you got sent if you were hurt, or couldn't last on the moves, right? And that's what I went there thinking. And I just remember my first week there, it was a blast. I had fun there, you know, and I remember Frederick was my leader at the time, and I remember checking in with him, and he's just looking at me, and he's like, really, like, privately, like, you're really good, it's okay there? I'm like, yeah, bro, it's not as bad as everyone thinks. It's a different kind of connection, but it's just as fun in different ways, right? Like, I remember, like, connecting with my brother making coleslaw, you know, or panning chicken at 7 or, you know, 8:30 in the morning, freezing cold, you know, like, it was just a different type of connection. And I got to connect with people I never really connected with. Todd, Brian was the guy that trained me on the fryers. I remember him picking chicken out one by one. He's like, no, let me show you how to do that. And he grabbed them like 5 in his hand at once. I'm like, dude, how do you do that? But I eventually learned. I got to connect with James, you know, I got to connect with a whole set of new brothers that I never really got to connect with. That's where my relationship with Joseph first took place, because I never really talked to Joseph before then. You know, so my Sticky Bird experience was just as good as the moving experience. It wasn't as long, it wasn't something I wanted at first, but it ended up being something that I did not mind, and it ended up being something that was way better than people made out to be. So, yeah.
For the younger brothers, what's the best advice you can give us?
This is where you're meant to be. You're here. Might as well just continue doing what you're doing to stay here, man. I can say this: you're not missing anything, because this is if you stay your course here, man. This is what life has. You know, I've never got to experience any of the things I got to experience until I came here, and because I stayed the course, I still get to experience these things in my own life a little bit now, a little bit more and more here and there, right? You know, and if the one thing that I could say that I would hope to stick with you is just give yourself the chance to become the man that you want to be. And if you give yourself that chance, every day will get better. There's going to be bumps, it's going to be hard, I promise it's well worth it. Nothing in life that's easy or given to you is worth keeping. And that's the best advice that I could give to you. Yeah.
I have 2 questions for you, Jay. The first one is, how have you dealt with resentment? And the second thing is, how have you separated, with the ice and stuff? I know that was tough. It was a tough spot. How did you deal with that? Looking back, was it different? Like what?
So my first one with resentment is, I've never been a person to really hold resentments, I don't think. So resentments have never really been a problem for me. When I do feel myself being hateful, I just don't. I don't like to use the word hate, and I don't like to hold grudges. I just feel like it's negative energy that a person doesn't need. With the Tyson thing, like how I dealt with it.
Yeah, I know you guys were close.
Yeah.
Aren't you close to Tyson? Just to see that happen.
So the way I dealt with it was I knew it was gonna happen. He was very vocal about it. So honestly, I just kind of started distancing myself a little from him. I love Tyson very dearly. He's one of my good friends, and he always will be. But I knew that his path at Red Barn wasn't going to be much longer because he was very vocal about it, and he didn't see the bigger picture of things, and that's really sucks, you know, because I think he could have done some great things here. So, any other questions? Casey.
What are some of the biggest skills that Red Barn is talking about that they need to apply to your life and recovery?
So communication and talking is one. When I first got here, I don't think I said a word for the first 3 months I was here unless I was forced to or, you know, talked to. I really didn't. And I still don't talk that much, but my communication skills have gotten really better. Dealing with, I guess you would call it problem solving or critical thinking. You know, as a crew lead, you come across things on the move that, you know, you have to think quick about and solve the problem, right? And I think being a crew lead, that helped me. Being the intern manager, helping me be more empathetic, things like that. John?
You know, I just want to say thanks for sharing that experience that happened with Tyson. You know, it just goes to show that, you know, even with the closest people that we get close to, you know, even the closest ones that we love, normally they're the hardest ones for us to plant that stake and to realize that sometimes they bring us down. You know what I mean? And it's just cool for me, and I think for all of us to see, like, the things that we are taught here, even in your situation with your bestest friend going through this program, you were still strong enough to realize that you guys were both on different waves, and it's nice to still see you being a good model to Red Barn. So thank you for that. And thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.
So I know you're trying to, you know, be program manager and you've been pretty vocal about wanting to work here. What other goals are you working on, man? What's next for Jake?
So right now I'm working on like personal goals, like furthering my relationships with my family. They're still not to the point where I want them to be. You know, you guys will get there at some point, but it's still kind of sometimes uncomfortable for me to be around my family because I just don't know how to explain it. But I'm really working on that. I'm working on finishing school. I'm about one class before I'm done with that, and I have my business admin certification. I don't know if I want to go any further than that. I haven't thought about that, but really my ultimate goals is really just whatever Red Barn needs, and then some personal stuff. Anything else? All right.
Thank you, Jake. Really appreciate you joining us, and that absolutely was a spiritual journey that you described for us. And can relate to a lot of things you talked about, from buying in from the go to you know, being a little bit tipped about getting sent to the chicken and turning out to really love it. That is my first love. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us. I'd like to also thank our guest, Rich Haas, of staff. Jeffrey's here. Jeff, for joining us. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Of course.
Come up and give this to Jake.
Jake, thank you. Here's a book I've written in it. Let me just share with you a little bit what Jeffrey brought up as well. This is probably one of the best spiritual talks that I've heard here. Recognizing, we have a saying that's on the inside of your bracelet, that's there, the one that stands within. And what I've heard Jake share with you tonight is that he feels like he's connected more with that one that stands within, better than you had before coming here. That's really the journey, that's the mission here. That's a spiritual journey. Most people don't really recognize that. And so what I would encourage you to do is, Jake set a great example here for you tonight, is to start to understand what that connection looks like, of who that person is that you want to connect with. That one that you want to be able to, when you leave here, that you feel better about yourself. That really is your spiritual journey. Whether it's a higher power or other influences that help you get there, that's all just part of the outside stuff. The inside stuff is what's the most important for you. And so thank you for setting the example, Jake, for us there. Appreciate it.